Hi, I'm Thorn Bishop, and welcome to Top Secret Inc. Today, we'll be walking through Ice Cream Man Vol.1 Rainbow Sprinkles, issue number 3 by Image Comics. So get comfortable, because it's going to be one hell of a ride. Okay, before we dive into this clusterfuck, I need to warn you. Out of all the stories in this anthology series, this one is the most fucked up. At one point, I thought I was having an acid flashback while reading it. This shit is trippy. The story kicks off in the early 1950s. There's a band playing on stage called the Rockets. The lead singer's name is Bud Hickey, and the show looks absolutely killer. There's a massive crowd, and the chicks are going absolutely apeshit for this guy. Bud's belting out his current number one hit. Looks like Bud Hickey is on a steady rotation at every radio station with every DJ across the USA. His song has been sitting at number one on the Billboard charts for at least the past 14 weeks. Let's give a big round of applause to Bud, the man who brought rock revolution to the world, changing the face of popular music for decades to come, the father of rock and roll. Now, let's jump to the present day, somewhere near Pontiac, Michigan, in some shithole Greasy Spoon diner. There's a couple of young adults sitting at a table with an album by Bud Hickey and the Rockets. The girl tells the boy holding the record that guy sitting over there at the end of the diner is Bud, the actual Bud Hickey. She tells him he's here like every morning at 7 a.m., same routine every single day. The waiter walks up to Bud and asks him if he wants a refill on his coffee. Bud looks up at him and asks the waiter if he's ever heard his song. The waiter looks back at him while filling his cup and says, "For sure, Bud, I remember. It was a great song." Okay, now let's step back for a moment here. If you haven't picked up on it yet, think about it. Bud's here at 7 a.m. every morning, and probably so is that waiter. So it's safe to believe that Bud probably ain't right in the head here. Could be dementia, Alzheimer's, but I'm pretty sure the waiter hears that same question several times a week. Anyway, let's get back to the boy and girl. She spits out that he was a one-hit wonder who changed the world with his music. Elvis was the king of rock and roll, but Bud Hickey made rock and roll popular. I don't know if it's sad or pathetic or just what happens to all of them, but he only had one song. It was so big it overshadowed his entire career. Apparently, he's a raging alcoholic, drinks himself to bed every night, and gets right back to it right after breakfast. Absolutely horrible. His family's all gone. He's all alone by himself. He pretty much is stone broke. All those royalties have completely dried up. He lives in a nasty broken down home at the edge of town. You know, the one with that broken sailboat in the driveway? The boy is like, "Yeah, I know that house. I thought it was condemned and no one actually lived in it." Hey, isn't that the ice cream man over there with his pushcart? So we see the ice cream man singing a little ditty as he's walking past Bud and asks him if he wants a sweet treat. Bud looks over and randomly asks him if his name is Rick. So here we can kind of tell that Bud may have some more memory issues. Rick cracks a little joke that he goes by many names. Then Bud asks him the million-dollar question if he knows who the father of rock and roll is. And Rick claps back with, "Well, Bud, that's an easy one. The king of rock and roll is Elvis." So Bud gets insulted by this apparently. He's the father of rock. Elvis is just the one that gets all the credit. Bud starts to brag about selling 60 million copies of his single internationally, even recording it over a dozen languages so that all kids across the world will be able to sing and dance along with it. Elvis couldn't even touch those numbers. Then the tone of his voice shifts from anger to sadness. Bud starts to sulk, telling Rick that all that fame disappeared, all the music disappeared. As much as he tried, he just couldn't write another hit. Dozens of songs, all flops. Rick is definitely noticing that this midlife crisis has lasted half a century too long. So then Rick opens up the ice cream cart and hands Bud a large scoop of vanilla on a cone. "On the house, Bud." That should make him feel a little better. Bud takes the cone and makes his way back home. When we get there, we find the entire house decorated with posters and memorabilia of his past as the first rock and roll star. Sitting down, he starts to emotionally abuse himself, reiterating that he was just a one-trick pony who got lucky and never had any real talent, just at the right place at the right time. On the sofa, there's a copy of his vinyl record. Picking it up, he starts to hear some music coming from somewhere else in the house. Now, this is really confusing to him because he knows he lives alone, and he definitely didn't leave the record player on. Bud follows his ears and heads down to the basement, but Bud doesn't recognize the song. Is this something in his mind? A riff? A musical phrase? A motif? Could this be his next hit? Is this what he's been waiting for all these decades? He gets past the door leading to his workshop and opens it up. That must be where the music is coming from. He opens the door, and on the other side appears to be what looks like another universe, another planet. The sky is green, there's pink dust clouds dancing off the floor. Where the hell is he? This isn't right. Running up to him is a person wearing an astronaut spacesuit. He calls out to Bud, "Finally, you're here. Welcome to the revolution." The astronaut speaks into his telecom device. "Hello, Ruby. I'm in contact with the hitmaker. What's your status?" In his earpiece, a female voice responds, "I'm on my way. I'm being tailed by some drippers. Call an evacuation immediately." In the distance, we can see a woman with a big afro riding an absolutely sick Harley, being chased by what I can only describe as ghosts from the Pac-Man video game, but they're like melting. The astronaut tells Bud to hold his specs while he radios in for an evac. Bud looks over and asks, "Are we still in my basement?" The astronaut turns his head towards him, even though through the helmet you can feel his disappointment. He says, "Bud, you were supposed to be our savior. We're fucked. Just stay close to me and look for that big yellow submarine in the sky." Then we hear the astronaut talking to the sub. "This is Major Tom to ground control. Beam us up, Scotty." Ruby on the Harley gets within 50 yards of the massive yellow sub up ahead, and all three of them vaporize from sight. We jump to the scene inside the yellow submarine spaceship. Bud is following Ruby Tuesday, and she's trying to explain to Bud about the drippers and Mr. Conehead. You know, that evil overlord that they're fighting against? Bud is having a hard time trying to understand the situation, and he's absolutely fascinated that the cruise ship is dressed like sailors from the 1950s. I told you, this story is a bit fucked. Bud starts to repeat all the information he's learned from Ruby Tuesday, and she snaps at him. "He's the guy you're supposed to stop. You're the hit maker. You're the only one who can do this. Your new song is our only hope." At this point, Bud is flabbergasted. "What do you mean, new song?" Ruby pulls him into a meeting room and introduces him to the team. They're called the Music People. Here, Bud meets Ziggy Stardust, Rocky Raccoon, Eleanor Rigby, Captain Jack, and he's already met Ruby Tuesday and Major Tom. If you're not aware, all of these people in the room have names from very famous songs within the first few decades of rock and roll. Let's not forget that Bud is the hitmaker, the first. Eleanor Rigby opens up a guitar case and pulls out this pimped out Fender Stratocaster. But they actually named it the Hendrix Stratoblaster. There's all kinds of sci-fi shit stuck to it, and it looks like there's some kind of piping or tubing sticking out of it. I can only guess that this is meant to amplify the sound, or it's some kind of ray gun, because, the blaster part of the name. We find out here that the reason Bud was brought to this plane of existence was to play the melody on the Hendrix, to be the hitmaker, to kill the evil Mr. Conehead, to remove him from existence once and for all, to end the tyranny, to be the peacemaker. And what the Music People need from Bud is a hit song. Now, we can see Captain Jack sailing the yellow submarine spaceship over to Harmony City, to the home of Mr. Conehead. In the meantime, Bud is trying to explain to everyone that he just can't do it. He only had one song in him. He spent most of his life trying to make another hit, and it only brings failure after failure. Eleanor Rigby has a shit attack on Bud because people are dying everywhere at the hands of Mr. Conehead and his minions. She tells him to shut his trap and get on the guitar and start writing. They finally arrive at Harmony City. There's a huge temple there in the shape of Mr. Conehead. Look, just look at it. It looks almost like Rick the Ice Cream Man, except the head. It's in the shape of an ice cream cone. They all get Scotty to beam them down to ground level, and they charge in for the attack. The Drippers charge back, and the battle begins. Eleanor's got some handguns, Ruby Tuesday is wielding a blood-red lightsaber, and we find out that the Hendrix Stratoblaster has a built-in ray gun. Unfortunately, it looks like Captain Jack just didn't make it. Major Tom is leading the charge and providing some cover for Bud. Ruby Tuesday takes a big hit and is pummeled. Don't know if she's dead or not yet. Bud keeps running, and you can hear Major Tom yelling, "How's the song coming along, Bud? We can really use it now." But in sheer panic, Bud tells us that it isn't coming out. It's just like it's stuck in his throat or something. Major Tom takes off his helmet to help entice Bud to think, of something quick. Time's running out. In fear, Bud realizes that the man behind the mask is Rick, the ice cream man. Then his head shape shifts into an ice cream cone, just like the temple in front of him. Major Tom is Mr. Conehead. Bud starts to hum a melody out of his mouth and points the Stratoblaster at Major Tom. He starts ripping a song on the guitar. Now we cut back to the shithole diner. It's the waiter. He's shaking Bud by the shoulders. Bud must have passed out or fainted at the table. His head was lying on a pile of vanilla ice cream. The waiter's like, Bud, are you okay?" Bud looks over to him. His skin is pale as a white ghost and says, "Did I do it? Did I save the world with my new song?" The waiter takes a deep breath and just shakes his head and tells him, "You had me worried there for a minute, Bud. Let me get you a refill of coffee. This should fix you up." Then we see the boy and the girl from the other side of the diner get up from the table and do a double take of Bud as they head out of the diner. And they don't even notice that giant yellow submarine spaceship overhead. I hope you enjoyed the walkthrough today. But here's the thing. You need to get your hands on the actual book. Hit up your local comic shop or grab it from an online vendor. Support these comic book companies because they're the real people busting their asses writing these insane stories. Even though you're hearing about it from me, when you actually read it yourself, I guarantee you'll have a completely different perspective on the whole thing. Trust me, it hits different on paper.